Computer.
All right, if you want, it's just us. We can wait another couple minutes, see if anybody else signs on. I see Mark Citron's here. Hello, Mark. From our zoning board. You sorry, you're unmuted now, Mark.
Yep.
Hank is here. Brian Sullivan. All right. I think we could probably get started if you'd like, Ken.
Please go ahead.
Okay. Let me mute people. Except for you. Okay. Just get that all set up. All right. All right. Let's open. Oh, you're okay. Dave's got it recording. It's 6:03. We'll call the meeting to order, the Town Board of Tuxedo, and please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey, so Ken, the agenda is pretty light, but would you like to start with your update? There you are. You're unmuted, Ken. Okay.
Ken just left.
He left and then he's on his, I think he's having problems. Let's see. Ken, are you there?
He is not.
Okay.
So just go ahead and start without him. He'll join back in, I'm sure.
Right. Well, we have a very light agenda tonight because we also want to do the start the zoning workshop at 6:30. So I know that on his update was going to be talking about Donna Matthews' retirement from her position as town clerk, and I'm sure he would like to say a few words. But Donna, I'd just like to say how great it has been to work with you, and I know that you've seen the town clerk position as sort of the heartbeat of the community. You've taken it on in that that heartfelt way that you have for everybody in the community, and taking care of people and all their issues is always been such a concern for you. And you've made everybody feel welcome at town hall, no matter what issue it is that they have. And we're going to miss you, but as town clerk, but we know you're going to be around. And so I know that you also spent a lot of time in the school working for them and knowing all of those people and helping them. So you've had a long career of serving the community. And for that, I want to say thank you so much. And I've really enjoyed working with you. Dave, would you like to say something?
Absolutely. So Donna goes way back when she first started here. I just want to point this out because I think it's the most important thing about recognizing Donna. She received no help from anyone. The person that she succeeded left without hardly any crossover. Donna walked into a job that absolutely is one of the most difficult I've ever seen to learn on the job. She put her face forward into her work. She gained knowledge from her peers in other towns on her own accord. She's successfully transitioned that office into something it hasn't been for many, many years. And I can't say thank you enough to Donna for just doing that. First of all, upon taking a pay cut, taking the job in the beginning. So I just want to say it's going to be a tough act to follow, Donna. And thank you.
I think Ken is back on. Ken, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes. We were just, I just was made the announcement Donna's retirement and wanted to express
Yes,
my
I heard a
appreciation.
few words, and I for a brief moment got to see Donna's smiling face, but I tried to work from town hall, Donna, and you probably heard me screaming if you opened the window. Apologies. Apparently, we're having multiple telecommunications problems here at town hall today, and so obviously it was a mistake me coming here, but I just want to say, Donna, what a pleasure it has been working with you, both as a resident, as a town board member, and most recently as town supervisor. You know, of course, we're going to miss you, and you've done a stellar job, a job that's often underappreciated, and you come to work every day and really try to put your best into it as you do, and you make us all feel happy to be here. Certainly me, I could speak for myself, absolutely. It's a pleasure working with you, and I wish you nothing but the best, you and your husband, in your future endeavors, and hopefully you'll stay in Tuxedo for a long time to come. But we'll definitely have lunch together and celebrate your time spent here in Tuxedo Town Hall, and I really appreciate everything you've done. So I'd like to ask everybody to just give a round of applause for Donna right now. Donna? Thank you, Donna.
Maria, would you like to, I've unmuted you if you'd like to.
Oh, sure. I mean, I thank you. You were the first person that I really got to know when I started in town hall. And I remember what I will never forget was like 9 o'clock in the morning being sworn in on January 1st. You were willing to leave your family on New Year's Day for a little bit to get me sworn in. So thank you. And I wish you the best. You
Thank
are a really a wonderful person.
Thank you.
Jay, you're unmuted.
Yeah, what they said.
I didn't expect anything less than that. Thank you, everybody. It's bittersweet. Like Dave said, I worked in the school, or Michelle, I worked in the school for a long time. And when I was approached to run for town clerk, I thought I'd see the other end of it and work with the residents. And the town clerk's office is definitely the hub for the residents, from calls for bears, squirrels, lost kids, whatever. People come to the town clerk for everything. Even some seniors that want to just vent, they come in, and you can't say, oh, I'm busy, I have work to do. And a lot of times you end up staying later, but you feel fulfilled because you help people. And I think that's what the town clerk's objective is to help the people in our town and to take care of their needs. Like when tragedy strikes and pandemics come around, we all come together and we help each other. And it shouldn't be political ever. It should be about people helping people. And that's why I took the job. I love all the residents, and I'm going to miss everybody, but I'll be around. And Dave, we go way back when I was campaigning, and thank you for all the help you've given me. We've had a lot of laughs, and I'm going to miss everyone, but please support the town clerk in any way you can. It's not an easy job, but it's a rewarding job. So thank you. And one last shout out to my deputy, Marissa, who came in when I was falling apart with taxes and everything. And she has stepped up and just been, I didn't know her before, but I am so grateful she has crossed my path because we worked well together, and I know a lot of you have interacted with her, so I don't need to say anything more about Marissa, but thank you all. And I'm still here till Halloween.
And Donna.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Ken, you want to take it from here?
Actually, I have no access to the screen. All I have is audio through my cell phone.
Okay,
It would be
so
very difficult. So I'm
All right, well,
appointing
let's-
Deputy Supervisor Michelle Lindsay to run this meeting, and I will eagerly be on the other end of the phone, muted most of the time.
All
Over.
right.
Michelle, if I'm not interrupting, I just want to make sure we cover one thing.
Sure.
And that is rescheduling that public hearing that we were going to have on Tuesday. I just want to make sure we have all our ducks in a row so I get it in the paper when I'm supposed to and all of that.
So the public hearing that we'll have October, let me just make sure, it's the 26th, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
the 26th.
We will have the public hearing on the tentative budget. And so we like to give the residents a sufficient amount of time to be heard. So because of that and not knowing what else is going to have to be taken care of at that meeting, the other public hearing we were thinking of having on the sign code amendments, we will push that one out to November 9th.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
I think that's the only thing we have to really take care of today. There's no agenda items. We just wanted to recognize Marissa and, well, recognize Donna and thank Marissa for her hard work getting us all organized with the records.
She's doing a great job.
I think so.
Maria, any new things on the website? Because we're all having problems with the website that we have.
He told the last communication I had with him, he said the first week of October, we'd be up. So today was the 7th. So tomorrow morning I'm going to call them up, and I said, okay, the first week of October has passed, and we'll see what they say. But I mean, we'll just tell them, you know, we've been waiting for 8 weeks now.
Yeah.
For this company to, you know, get this done.
Okay.
But it should be momentarily within the next couple of days.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well, one thing we could do, Maria, is, you know, when this person does come to start getting us set up, you know, he's going to need to know what content we're going to want, right? So,
yeah.
If you want, we could have a side meeting and discuss what content we're going to put up on the website. We've had many discussions about that and start working on what that content would be.
Yes, I actually mapped content, possible content. I have it all, like I went through all the different websites in different towns, and I saw what I really liked as a person going into the website, what information seemed really important and relevant. So I have that already done. So I can share that with you guys, and you can tell me, you know, yes, this is something that we like to have or we won't like to have. So I will share that document with everybody because that's already been done. It was done before I actually, as soon as we got the, you know, the website approved, I went through I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have more links than we needed more spaces than we needed to have. So I will share that with you. That's in a Google Doc. So I will share with everyone. I have shared it with Ken. I might have shared it with Marissa, but I'm not sure. But definitely Ken I shared it with, but I'll share it with the rest of you.
All right, so that's called the mock-up, and the next stage is sandbox. So everybody on this council should be involved in that stage because it's not going to be a live website. It's going to be sandbox with a URL that's private for us to view.
Right.
As we review each and every section and decide upon the final content. So, yeah, now that we waited so long, it's better to be ultra prepared so we can turn it around quicker.
I will share this with you all. After the meeting, I will, you know, just go on my computer and share it, you know, with everybody.
Well, I can think, I don't know how you have it set up, but do you have it identified who's going to create the content? And with whoever it is, Or how do we figure that out?
Generally speaking, that's going to be department heads who control their specific area.
Right. I mean, for instance, like we have the new billboard at Corey Field, and we're kind of looking at the website as a place we hope people go to learn more about Tuxedo. And I think that we had thought about one tab that kind of talks about Tuxedo. You know,
Oh, what is the first tab is about Tuxedo? Let me see if I can find. So what I went through was every tab that's right now on the website that was on the design. And then it went in like what could go in there already. And so the first tab it's called About Tuxedo, that's the very first tab that you open up in that bar on the top.
So who would create that content? I mean, I understand the department heads would create.
I mean, I think that should be created by somebody on the board, or maybe a committee, or maybe somebody, like I was thinking, there's I mean, we can decide who, but
So
it could be.
what'll happen is the main objective right now is to get the format right.
Right.
And then everything that's contained, like pictures or whatever, is going to be interchangeable. So there's going to be a template per se that's agreed upon, and I think you've already done that, Maria.
That's what I did. But what I did is I try to put content on every possible content on every link. Like I didn't write anything, but I said what kind of information is typically on that link. And then some of it is like obvious, but like, when I looked at the different departments, what kind of information seemed to be important to put in there that perhaps we didn't already have, or we might already have it. I mean, when I went to our website, some of the stuff we already have, but it's hard to talk about it without sending it to you, but all of the links are mapped. There's also two things. There's a hover. When you hover over a link, you get like the left side of it, sort of like the summary. And then when you hit on it, then you get the specific links. So, some of them I said, what's the hover goes on the left side of the information, sort of like the topics. And on the right side is more like the actual information and links and attachments and things like that.
Okay, so what I'm just asking is if we can dole out the responsibilities for creating the content so that if this person's supposed to be starting this week, we can, or maybe in the meantime, if it's going to take a while, we could put the content up on our current website. So since we put the billboard up, we're hopefully driving people to the website, we need something there for them to.
Well, I don't know if that's doable very quickly. I mean, there's too many things that have to happen right now. I think we're just behind the curve on even getting any outreach from these guys, right? So we should have been doing this a while ago. But anyway,
well, let's get
they're going to create the initial content. We're going to guide them. They're going to build the entire website. We don't have to do anything.
Right.
Through our guidance collectively and the department heads. And then from then on, they're going to hand us the keys after they do training with the department heads. But the other part is, don't forget, we have to repoint the domain name at their website. We just can't point their sandbox to our tuxedo.org domain name that easily because it'll be private. So until we say this is now production worthy, that won't even happen. So that even lights a fire under us for the obvious reasons.
Right. Okay. Can I share something with you? Let me share. I will share with you this document that I made. Let me see. Let me go back to meeting for a second. Share screen. Okay. So you see what I did? So each one of these things, so this is what could go in. These are like when I looked at different websites. So, and here is a sample of what the So a lot of it is done. It's done. Like, for example, in the services, all we have to do, these are the links I go, and this is it. This is like all the information. It's done. We just have to decide we want to put this content in or not, and who puts it in.
Yeah, well, that's the next step. You worked hard on that, and that's what they're going to take as sample one, and they're going to build that right there. Then they're going to shoot it back to us for review, and then we, like you said, you and I have too. I've went out and looked at some of the surrounding communities' websites, especially the ones hosted by Civic Plus.
Yeah,
and there's some ideas out there as well, but certainly one that. Do you have a tab in here for economic development per se?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
it's down here for economic development.
So Michelle, that would be owned by you and your team on what to bring there. So you just have to review this document.
So I mean, I'd be happy to start writing the content for what would be under that tab. And maybe it seems like everything is done, and we might want a general welcome to Tuxedo, something about our history.
Yeah, this here, you see this here? It says about. He actually set it off. So welcome to Tuxedo. This is where we would write that. That's like the very first thing. It's actually when you hit this, when you hit the town of Tuxedo, it goes to that.
Oh, good.
It goes to welcome to Tuxedo.
Right.
But it's the first tab right here.
Right.
And so it's already in. Like, this would be, this would when I looked at other town websites that were local town websites, but also that were Civic Plus websites, I looked to see like what are the things that about Tuxedo, and it could be links about just about us, but also other parts in that in that page about directions.
So I think so much work has been done. All we need is, I'll write my stuff, and we just would see who might want to write the welcome to Tuxedo part.
Right, and the department heads need a heads up that
that would be great too. Let's touch base. So we'll need to have a meeting to see who.
Now I got an idea. So as a teaser, I mean, I know, you have the billboard up, so I can create a teaser on the current page that lets everybody know that that's forthcoming.
Oh, that would be great. Cause I don't want, here we are, like, go to our website.
Yeah, no, I'll put something like the highly new and improved Tuxedo website. We'll be here shortly. So please stand by. Right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of places do that. But
okay. Good. All right. So that's a great update. Dave, do you have anything else for updates?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay. Let me see if Jay, I'm going to unmute you. You want to talk about the ADA?
The whole law in general? I don't think we have enough time.
Well, you know what I mean.
The ADA improvements at Town Hall are proceeding, construction proceeding at Town Hall, which has led to some inconvenience for both people working there and probably people coming in. The last couple of days involved relocating phone and internet equipment, which took those systems down for a while. My understanding is that everything is back up and running properly. I'm sure Donna can let me know if it isn't. And we're working very hard to get all this stuff done by the early part of November.
That's great. Awesome. Yeah, who was it we were talking to the other day? He said for an old building, he was very happy with how smoothly things were going.
That was the head contractor. Yeah, we haven't found the really big thing hiding in the walls yet, but we'll find it. Don't worry, it's there. So the contractors also, I'd like to share that contractors also say that working with Donna and Marissa and everyone else at Town Hall has been one of the easiest venues they've had to work in recently. So score one for our team.
Exactly. Yeah. Everyone at Town Hall is getting high marks from the contractors. Okay, let's see. Ken, are you there? Let me see
Yes,
if
can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Very good. Thank you. So I have one announcement I wanted to make. The New York, New Jersey Trail Conference volunteers have been working diligently up on the Ramapo-Dunderberg Trail, which the trailhead runs at the back of the East Village. And unfortunately, they had they had parked their cars in the Lucky parking lot, and some vandalism happened there. So I'm working with the chief to allow 2 of their cars to park at the trailhead on the days they do their work, so that their cars are in close proximity to where they're working, and really to just facilitate the good work that these volunteers do to improve the trails that bring many visitors, quality visitors, to the town of Tuxedo. So I know we had a lot of problems with visitors coming to Powerhouse Park, but the visitors that we're trying to attract here are conscientious hikers that use the trails that run throughout Towerman State Park. This trailhead is very important to Tuxedo and to the people who use the parks, because this is a trail that's accessible to people who use the mass transit, both the short line bus and the Metro North trains. So a lot of hikers couldn't avail themselves of our beautiful park if they didn't have a trailhead here in Tuxedo. So again, this Saturday, I'll be working with Chief Abbott, Lieutenant Norton, and the Tuxedo PD, first of all, to meet those volunteers at the trailhead, let them know that we welcome them here. They're doing amazing work, and that they're absolutely going to be given special permit to park their cars there while they're doing their work. And so I wanted to let that be clear. A bit of distressing news that I heard today was that Steve's Pizza had a burglary, and that's very distressing to me. So Deputy Supervisor Michelle Lindsay and I have been in communication with the chief and Lieutenant Norton, and I guarantee you we'll be taking action to increase police presence and respond to this very alarming incident that happened at Steve's Pizza. I'll have more details soon, but of course, it's of grave concern to me and the town board to make sure that the security of Tuxedo is amped up, to make sure incidents like this are diminished, and also that to the best of our ability, we'll find the perpetrators and prosecute to the fullest extent of the law. So thank you, Deputy Supervisor Lindsay. I look forward to the workshop.
Okay, thank you. I don't think we have any department heads on. Donna, is there anything else you'd like to add as a department head?
No, I think I'm all set. I said enough. We're just working on, doing the usual record management. I will say that the project at the town hall is going really well. The guys there are great. Bill is great, informative. They've been speaking to Marissa, so they don't have to speak to all 5 of us in there. And they clean up after they're done at night. They're great. So we only had to take 1 day and work from home because they were hanging out of the ceiling over our head. So.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you for helping them out. I know Marissa's done a lot of helping them with where things are located, et cetera. It's great.
Yeah, they're a good group of people.
Yeah, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, let's see. I don't see Rob Dolbaum or anybody else online. So, and I don't see Bonnie Franson yet. So let me call her and make sure she's not having trouble getting on. I could, let's see, I have her cell number somewhere. Okay, so I don't know. No, I know what we have to do. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the town board meeting and to start our, well, first of all, let's just do that part of business. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dave. Dave, I'll take a roll call.
Aye.
Maria,
Aye.
Jay. Oops, hold on. There you
Don't
go.
do anything. Leave it right the way it is. Aye.
And Ken. Whoops, Ken. Supervisor Ken English.
That's all right. We got a majority. He doesn't have any choice.
We're good. We passed the adjournment. Okay, so now we will open up the zoning workshop. And let's see. Oh, there's Bonnie. Yay. Hi, Bonnie. Can you hear us? Whoops. She's muted. Hold on. Just unmuted you, Bonnie.
Hello.
Hi, there you are.
I have to get my speakers working here.
Okay. Good. Well, we're all here.
All right. How is everybody?
We're good. We're very good.
Good.
Had a nice little half-hour town board meeting, getting caught up on things.
Good.
You know what? Well, Brian, I hope, did you want to say anything? I'm so sorry. Hold on, Bonnie.
Sure.
Brian, there you are. You're unmuted, but I can't hear you. So maybe the audio on your laptop isn't loud enough. Oops, still can't hear you. I'm pretty sure you're going to have to look at your volume on your laptop. Yep, sounds good. I hear some.
How about now?
Yeah, perfect.
I really just had a quick question for Dave and Maria about getting a hard copy of the tentative budget and the worksheets to them. Do you guys want copies of those, or are you okay with the electronic versions?
I'm good with the e-copy.
Okay. Maria?
Hold on. There you go.
Electronic is fine.
Okay.
Electronic is fine.
Okay. Just making sure.
Thanks,
Okay.
Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. That's so much work he's been putting into that. It's amazing. Okay, so let's go back to getting Bonnie unmuted. So we were going, Bonnie, I've unmuted you.
Yes.
So you were able to get some information about auto body shops, but so the main points we are going to cover today in the zoning workshop will be all the considerations we've put into changing code for signs.
Okay.
And then we've had many discussions about gas stations in town. And then finally, related to that, we can go into auto body shops. So those
Okay.
would be the three areas of focus.
Okay.
And let's see. So would you like to get that started, or?
Sorry, Michelle?
I'm just thinking I'm trying to think how we should look at the sign changes that have been discussed and the best way to move forward. I resent that email exchange between Jay and Marissa. If everybody saw that. And I think that let's see if I can get that up.
Yeah, I saw that she had transmitted on 7/28/2020 a document that included, I guess, some amendments that she was proposing to the signs section of the draft law. I don't know if any additional revisions were made to the document.
Well, there's section F. Let's see if I can get that up.
I can get that up in a second. So
you are good at that.
to catch up, so we have been looking at some amendments, and Marissa looked at some amendments back in whenever 7 is, July.
Mm-hmm.
And then more recently, we've dealt with this new local law that's going to be introduced in a couple of meetings to address this question of commercial for sale signs. And as part of that local law, we've also incorporated some of the changes to definitions and to the no permit required signs to accommodate the changes that have happened in the area of First Amendment rights since our sign ordinances were passed.
Mm-hmm.
So, wait one.
Did I hear you correctly that are you taking a portion of those sign regulations and you're going to adopt them separately? Because I thought I heard you say sign law.
Yeah, I'm a little fast and loose, right? So, but yes, we are going to introduce a local law that changes a portion of the current sign ordinances that are in the current zoning.
Okay, in the current zoning.
Right. And
Okay.
of course, we'll wind up incorporating that into the new zoning.
Okay.
And of course, I'm busy trying to find the bit that I wanted to.
Has she put together the local law already? Is that something to receive?
Yes. And I just shared the wrong thing, so stand by.
Okay. If you hear clickety clacking, that's just me typing notes as we go along.
Yes. So the there we go. I had to scroll down. So I'm currently sharing what is the current text of and this was the text that was introduced at the last meeting of the new law that's going to revise portions of the existing sign regulations.
Okay.
This was emailed out. Wait, Marissa emailed this out on 9/29, and you were not copied on that, but I can fix that.
Thank you.
And now you is.
Thank you.
Am I busy sharing my entire screen with everybody now, or is everybody still looking at the?
Right now I see gray.
Yes, you had it up, and then I think maybe when you forwarded the email, I don't know if there's some way to go back.
There we go. So it should be back now.
Yes, it is.
Okay, sorry. I guess I can't do stuff in the background when I'm in the foreground. So what's up now is the text of the introduced local law to make amendments to the current sign regulations. And of course, I'm assuming that once we get this hammered out, we're going to include it pretty much verbatim in the new sign regulations that'll be in the new zoning. I didn't know if this, did you want to review this, Michelle, or did we want to go through the other parts of the sign regulations, or what did you have in mind?
Well, I just want to make sure we haven't really had a chance as a board to discuss this particular introductory law, right? Am I right on that? So if there's some way we can highlight some of the main changes. Basically, let's see, billboards is not really under our purview, correct?
That's not true.
Yeah,
billboards
they are.
In the other rights of way.
Oh, if it's our right of way, okay.
Yeah, if someone wants to put a billboard on a piece of property in the town of Tuxedo, they can, unless you decide to not permit them. But when they're in the state right of way, that's a different story.
Okay, so like it would be up to the board to.
The current zoning actually forbids billboards.
Correct.
Okay.
Period.
Yep.
And I'm assuming we're going to keep that in the new zoning.
Yeah, we haven't discussed that.
I can say that many communities do, unless they're community type signs. And And the other issue that you need to make sure that you address, if you do for any reason want to allow billboards and frankly, in general, signs, is whether or not you're allowing digital signs, scrolling signs. Oftentimes, the sign regulations will talk about not having blinking lights or having this kind of signs that are distracting, especially to drivers. But many sign regulations did not anticipate digital signboards. And so, whether you address it now or address it later, that should be part of what you should review and whether you would allow it. And in particular, if you've been down 287, or if you've been in Mawa or heading toward Pompton Lakes, I think there's some digital signboards down that way. Depending on where they're located, I think you even if they could go in a right of way, I think you would want to make some kind of statement that you don't want to allow them if you don't want to allow them. And keep in mind there's digital billboards, there could be digital signs, there could also be digital change board signs that are, let's say, on a fire district sign or a place of worship, or that talk about community events, at town hall, you might install for any reason a sign. So kind of think about the types of signs, that could get installed that are digital.
Okay. What really got us started on this, Bonnie, if you recall a few meetings ago, was commercial for sale signs and for rent signs that were not permitted under the part of the code that says, well, to say it another way, they needed to come for a permit, and there were size regulations.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were kind of focusing on signs because we wanted to think about whether we would allow these for sale signs to be larger than the normal real estate for sale signs.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of why we got started down this path, but it's obviously leading to lots of other little offshoot paths.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you think is the best, since it's a bigger issue, should we look at what got us going down this road in the first place, commercial for sale signs, and whether they could be larger than the normal size?
Well, I think it's all context. And so I wasn't part of the discussions about the real estate sign, so I'm not fully familiar. I have a little bit of background with regard to the fact that there are signs that are posted on various properties. And I guess for one, there might be a concern about maintenance of them, that they stay up there for 5 years and basically the supports and everything else is falling apart. And then you have to differentiate between someone who's, let's say, selling a commercial development such as Tuxedo Plaza over in Southfields versus someone who's just trying to sell a house.
Right.
Which are your typical, realtor signs, I don't know, maybe 3x2 that someone puts on their lawn.
Right. I think it was 6 square feet or something is what's allowed. And then, and they don't need a permit if they want to put a for sale sign in front of a home that's
Mm-hmm.
for sale. So, but
And commercial. And does the board think that's, I think that's reasonable. That's kind of what everybody does. Does the board think that's reasonable?
I believe we are in agreement. We didn't have a problem with that part of the code at all.
Okay.
But then it became that commercial signs, where do they fall? Do they fall under that size constraint? And can they be put up without needing a permit? And I think that's sort of where we're at.
Well,
right.
And it seems that the way this is structured, it says temporary signs not to exceed 8 square feet in area. But then if it exceeds a certain size, the sign must be submitted to the code enforcement officer for a permit. So it looks like once you go over 8 square feet for any sign, then for commercial real estate signs, you have to go to the code enforcement officer.
Okay, if I can jump in a minute,
Yes, please.
because we've dealt with a lot of this already.
Mm-hmm.
So the existing code, which is not what we're looking at here, this is the proposed revision.
Mm-hmm.
The existing code allows a certain number of signs that can be installed without needing a sign permit.
Mm-hmm.
And the only real estate type sign mentioned at all in the code
Mm-hmm.
are signs in front of what we would think of as regular house residential signs. So 2 by 3 feet on a post, and that is permitted without a permit.
Mm-hmm.
The commercial signs that people were asking for don't fall under that category. And since the current regulation doesn't differentiate between commercial real estate and residential real estate, only talks about real estate signs, the only real estate sign that's currently permitted in front of any property is the 2 foot by 3 foot sign.
Mm-hmm.
So to address that, we've started with this. Where this started was to be able to have a commercial type of sign, which would be stand by. Item 3 here, temporary commercial real estate signs not to exceed 32 square feet in area, which is to say 4 by 8 feet. And then some other regulations on it, which will give us a no permit required commercial real estate sign.
Mm-hmm.
Once we started on this, it was the recommendation of council that we update this entire section, which includes most of the signs that get installed, to incorporate the changes to sign regulations that have been required by case law dealing with First Amendment rights. And so now we have this whole section that includes these other things.
Mm-hmm.
So to go back up, somewhere I got a mouse here. This number 2 is all kinds of temporary signs that don't exceed 8 square feet that you can do without without needing a sign permit, which includes the residential real estate signs, garage sales, Christmas lights, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Where are the political, okay, in D, the political
Yeah, they're there.
campaign signs, is that sort of the First Amendment? I mean, you can say, stop the whatever,
You can
people
put up,
who want to put up an issue,
yes,
that would be under this.
yes. I mean, basically, case law, and of course, we really should have our lawyers here to explain this better than me, the engineer. But we as a town are not allowed, with some very small exceptions, to tell people what they can say on their signs.
That is true. I do know of communities, including one where I was there last night, that requires that you get a special use permit for all political signs. And the reason being, it is freedom of speech, but at the same time, I guess, people who are running for office are posting signs on other people's properties in the public right of way. And so to ensure that the signs get removed, they just simply have a law that says that it has to be removed within 7 days. I mean, the law doesn't read, the town encourages. It is more of a process to ensure that someone has to pay a fee to be able to install the permits, which ensures that if they want the money back, they remove any signs that they've installed.
Jay, could you slide back up to 2 again, please? Okay, So what about those signs that we see pop up that are just arbitrary, people coming along and just plopping a sign about an event that's happening in another town? Is that going to be permitted under this new law?
Hey, where would that be?
You can put any sign you want on your own property that are permanent. Temporary signs are very clear, right? Garage sale signs, seasonal displays, political signs, public notices, and banners on the sidewalks of your property. You can't just come along and drop a sign that isn't one of these things in the public right of way, and you can't put a sign on anybody else's property without their permission.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we have a lot of what was it, the chocolate festival sign, and in other towns. I think that's what you're referring to, right, Dave? When
Sal buys houses. Yeah, call it.
And they usually put them on utility poles too.
Yeah, and that's those don't fall under these definitions. So I mean, you could call Sal and tell him to take his signs down, or I guess we could, use the various enforcement techniques to bring him in for violations. It's $250 a sign, per day that they're up.
Good idea, because the contact information is right there.
Exactly.
right.
So according to this, under G, it would appear that those events are allowed.
Yeah,
Subject to code enforcement officer notification.
Well, I mean, for instance, like the Masker's Farm, they paid a certain amount for each sign that they put up, but it had to be approved by the board.
Mm-hmm.
Masker's Orchard, directional signs. So I would say we don't want those to be allowed without a permit. There's always the chocolate festival up at Monroe Village. They seem to put up their signs.
Ken saying, please unmute. It's Ken.
Excuse me? Oh, okay. Somebody said about Ken. He's writing stuff in the chat.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Sorry. Thank you. Let me double check that.
He's 3473 **553.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. We covered the first. I thought he was unmuted. Okay. Sorry, Ken.
These G signs, to answer your question, are things like those flags down at the Tuxedo, that housing complex right as you get into town on the south end.
Mm-hmm.
That's what these contemplate. Or
I would argue that would include things like Masker Farms, because it's saying temporary banners or flags promoting grand openings, seasonal messages when displayed in connection with commercial promotion or special events hung on buildings or extended across sidewalks and or streets.
Sure.
But then it says where approved, and that kind of begs the question, by whom?
There are rules about approvals across the streets.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, good. Note taken. And unfortunately, Marissa isn't on the line, so let's put a pin in that and
okay.
And I will.
So I guess the question is, I guess from the town's perspective, what do you want to allow by permit? Do you want to review, when Masker has events or when Warwick has its Apple Fest, or, what do you want to come in front of the town? And usually it's about knowing where it's going to be installed and ensuring that it gets removed.
Yeah, when Masker,
To me, it's temporary signs placed on town property, on public property, for a defined period of time. So like the Masker signs, they come and submit a permit. They provide a drawing and a measurement, and it's for a very specific amount of time, a number, how many signs, where they're being placed, and it's a point of minimal revenue for the town, but it does have that control that people have to pay per sign. I believe it's $25 a sign for, again, a specified amount of time. So a lot of what Jay's pointing out here certainly is, signs on your own property, a whole different thing. We're talking, in this case, we're talking about signs on town property, definitely need a permit. Unless they're the political signs or something, I think, I can't see, Jay would have to scroll up to get to the one about if somebody in the town government, I remember seeing, put up a sign, something.
Public notices.
Public notices, C. Right. Of course,
Right.
Those don't need a permit.
Yeah,
I think it's also important to remember that this is not the entirety of the sign regulations. This is only the signs that you don't need a permit for.
Right, correct. Thank you.
And so the question is, are these all acceptable to the board in terms of not needing a permit? I mean, a garage sale sign. Interestingly, some communities actually want a permit for the garage sale itself, not necessarily the sign.
I think
Non-illuminated.
what's unique about this A though, Bonnie, it's only on erected on the property on which the sale is conducted. So it's not, you could put garage sale signs all over the neighborhood and direct you to that property. This is just if you were doing it just on your property. Over.
So what happens if it is not on your property? Is that regulated? Because you almost have to look at this in connection with what exists now, because this isn't like a red line version of the entire section, so you can't see it within the context of what already exists.
That's more than I can put up on the screen at one time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
But
that what we're trying to
everybody's been sent a copy of it a couple of times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess the question is, do we agree that we're okay with these types of signs being allowed without a permit is really the question that we haven't had a time to really discuss as board together. Maria, were you waving your hand that you wanted to say something? No. Hold on.
Well,
Hold on.
I don't have a problem with it.
Maria?
So I don't have a problem with it, but the only thing is, like, I mean, what if if it has that, those measurements, but they're really garish and gross, we don't have any say at all of like just about the measurements. We don't have any say about like, can you have like a hand painted sign with like, cardboard advertising your property that's 8 by whatever without a permit?
I think that's in that section down there, Jay, called sign area or something. Isn't that down lower on your?
there are size limits, and the remainder of the sign regulations do things like prohibit cardboard signs. So again, there's only one piece, and what we're trying to do is, well, the reason that we're looking at this now is to be able to get a commercial real estate sign onto the books now, because there's been a demand for it.
Yeah. So I would only add that Marissa should look at this because in stating that there are certain signs that don't require a permit, such as on-premise garage sale signs, provide the sign is erected on the property on which the sale is conducted. It begs the question: what does that mean for temporary garage sale signs that are not on the property? Is it covered under then it's prohibited, or that it has to come in for a permit?
I think it has to come in for a permit. These are what we're trying to come to an agreement on, is the ones that we would allow without a permit.
Right. And so I'm suggesting to make sure Marissa looks at this to make sure, again, that it's explicit that if it doesn't meet these requirements, then it comes in for a permit, and a permit from whom? The code enforcement officer, I'm guessing.
And those, yes, and the code is clear on that. Signs that are part of a site plan are planning board. Most other signs are building official. There are a few classes of signs that are that the town board has jurisdiction over.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a bigger question mark for the overall zoning. I worked on the last edits to the sign regulations, and it was pretty comprehensive, and it had a lot of design standards because the signs at that time were subject to ARB approval, and the town board at that time decided that they wanted to make it easier to install signs throughout the town. So because a building inspector doesn't have a lot of discretion as a building inspector, there had to be enough in the way of design standards to allow him to review them and have some aesthetic consideration when he does review and approve them. So that's kind of why the structure of the sign regulations in the law are what they are. Just as background. But again, I'm just writing a note myself with regard to
That makes sense.
making sure that it's explicit that if it's not temporary, that it needs some kind of permit.
And that certain temporary signs also need permits, like masker or things like that.
Right.
That was always my understanding, that the town board's more has oversight over temporary signs, and that the ARB and now the planning board have oversight of permanent signs, like when at Tuxedo Plaza, the big wooden sign that tells you what businesses are there, that type of thing. It's more of the accessory sign, right?
So I think, I think right.
Temporary.
Yeah, I think right now, Michelle, I don't think any signs are subject to ARB approval, but now the planning board is wearing the ARB hat.
Right.
But regardless, if the ARB hasn't been given the authority to look at signs, they can't. Having said that, the planning board, when it reviewed the sign code and was reviewing the zoning document, one of its recommendations is they did, if I recall correctly, they did want to review signs. And so I think that's just an overall question for the town board for the bigger, picture of the rezoning. Who has the authority to review signs? If you want to change it at all, or if you want to leave it with the code enforcement officer.
So with the go ahead, Jay.
So currently, I mean, that's fine, and we can look at that. And again, there are the rest of the proposed zoning for signs, okay, which is, it's one of the largest sections in the code.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, specifically states that you can't put up a sign permanent or temporary without a permit, except for this very small class of signs.
Mm-hmm. You're talking about the proposed or the existing?
Both. But the proposed certainly does. I don't have the existing in front of me because I can't turn my screen off. And
sorry, Jay, you know what?
Says that planning board, the current and proposed zoning currently are that if a sign is involved with a site plan, it's planning board. If it's not being reviewed by the planning board, it's the code enforcement officer.
Right.
And that's where we are. Now we can look to change that stuff, but we need to.
That's for another day.
That's for another day.
Right.
I mean,
no, I apologize. So we're kind of talking about two things when we talk about proposed zoning. So I would just differentiate between proposed sign amendment, proposed overall zoning, and then existing zoning. So I'm not sure that the existing zoning, as I said, and you have it in front of you. I don't have it up. Again, is it explicit that it says that you need a permit if you don't fall within one of these categories? So I'll take a look at it myself and we could raise it with Marissa.
Okay.
Okay, I think we're at a good point. We know the issues we want to get resolved, right?
Yep.
The current zoning, and that is current as in on the books now.
Okay.
Unless otherwise permitted by this section, no person shall install, build, enlarge, relocate a sign without a sign permit.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Now, do people still want to see this thing that I have up? I don't even know what I'm showing anymore.
I see a gray screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There we go.
I think we've had a good discussion about what our questions are, and 2G, we want to make sure that gets reworded.
I want to make a point about 3 when you're finished.
Okay, I just think it's a little too open-ended, and but Ken, go ahead.
I'm not sure. I think I'd like to see under number 3 that's bolded there, Jay, something about how many signs are permitted, maybe by frontage. I mean, so can somebody put 5 of these signs across 100 feet, or is it 1 sign per 100 feet of frontage? That seems a little vague here as to how many of these would be permissible.
Okay.
What is 2 years the right time frame also? Why not have them, come in and renew on an annual basis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Had to pick a number so that people could tell me it was wrong. 2 years is not an unreasonable length of time for a commercial building to take to sell, which is where I got that number from. My wife's a commercial realtor, and I said, "So how long is your sign usually up?" And she said, "I don't know, about 2 years." So that's what I put it there.
I think the way that it reads.
There's also some other code that talks about maintaining the sign. So part of the issue with how long it's up there is how badly has it deteriorated. So I know in the code it does talk about the need to maintain a sign. Over.
Absolutely.
And do you want to add that again explicitly under 3, or you want to rely on the other sections of the code? And so why I was saying 1 year, Jay, is you could say, and it sounds like if it's 2 years and they get past 2 years, they have to actually submit another, request for another permit, as opposed to coming back into the code enforcement officer after 1 year and renewing what they already have, with some kind of fee. And at that time, he makes a determination whether it needs to be maintained.
Okay. I mean,
just another thought.
This is the absolutely. This is the we can make it 1 year. I mean, we can make, I wouldn't make it less than that.
No, I wouldn't make it less than that either.
So, but
I think I'd go with the year.
Okay.
And if it could just reference where in the code the maintenance criteria are, just cross-reference.
Yeah,
I think that's a good idea.
You have to repeat it all.
It seems that there do need to be some standards, as Maria was saying, well-built signs, nothing flimsy, but that's all covered, right?
That's all in the code already.
Okay.
You could treat it like a freestanding sign, which is in the code.
Yeah, I mean,
and has the standards. So, and again, if the whole point of adding this is because there's some that have been out there and are falling apart and they've been there for 5 years, then it would be useful to specifically say they're required to be maintained as per.
Right.
Yep, that's fine. And the reason we have this is because some responsible realtors came to us and said, we want a permit for a sign, and we had to say we can't give you one. And then people said, but wait a minute, what about all these people who have signs up?
Hmm.
So we're trying to address this injustice.
Void.
Actually, and while we're talking about this, this is a concerning the premises upon which the sign is located. So they're not going to advertise for another property elsewhere on a different property.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, so
It says
I think our-
concerning the premises upon which the sign is located.
Right. I was
Correct.
just making sure. Because then in theory, it's a billboard because it's
Right.
advertising
Right,
for
yeah.
something that's on a different site.
Correct.
No, I think it's clear that it says it has to be on the site, about the site of which the sign is erected.
Right.
All right. So I think our next steps are we should all review this and make sure if we don't have any further questions given this discussion and
So
have.
Bonnie, have you ever heard of the point that I was making of how many signs per frontage? Have you ever seen that in a code? Because
Yes.
again, I just would not want somebody to put like on every corner, you know, they have a sign or, you know, just oversaturation. That would look ridiculous. I mean, what would be a reasonable 100 feet of frontage, 200 feet? I don't know.
Right. Well, the way this is drafted right now, temporary commercial real estate signs not to exceed 32 square feet in area. And then it says non-illuminated temporary for sale or for rent commercial real estate sign. So what is in question is, in fact, how many signs are you actually allowing?
That's my question.
So, you know, the first, the bolded part talks about real estate signs kind of generally, but when you have something that's plural and then something which is singular, it might confuse a little as to what the intent was. And zoning is to be interpreted when there is ambiguity in favor of the applicant and the property owner. So you can either allow one, or if it's a particularly, again, a long site with a lot of frontage, if you wanted to allow it per a certain amount of frontage, you could do that too. And I have seen that done. And so is there a preference on the part of the board?
I think maybe 500, every 500 feet of frontage, maybe.
I would suggest that it should be one per frontage, but it
Okay.
doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah.
So
I
a
like
corner
that.
lot can
One
have two
per-
signs.
I suppose if somebody really wanted more than one sign, they could just, I don't know, what would they have to go to? Zoning board for a variance or something? They wanted more. Say,
Well,
Dusty,
if
We
they
just
didn't,
put one.
if they don't
Just
meet it,
make it one.
okay, that's easy.
Just make it one, and that would
Yeah, I mean-
certainly.
Well, wait a minute. Jay said something about frontage. So what happens if you have a commercial property that has frontage on two separate roads?
right.
So are you going to deny them the right to have advertisement on both of those roads?
So I'm trying to look for
That
examples
was
here.
the point I was trying to make. Yeah. Then the variance from that, Dave, is okay at the corner where the two meet. I'm going to put two signs right next to each other.
Well, and that's fair enough. I just wanted to be
It
considerate.
could be. I mean, if
So-
the frontage on the second street is 20 feet, you know, then it's like, oh boy, okay.
So if we look at Hickory Hollow
But,
as
yeah, I
an
mean-
example, because I'm just measuring,
All right.
There you go.
their frontage on Route 17 before it kind of curves and turns into Warwick Brook Road is about 1,354 feet.
Wow.
And then their frontage along Warwick Brook Road is about 500 feet. If we look at Tuxedo Plaza, does everybody know where that is? That's the vacant property where they had approved a shopping center by Spring Street before you make the turn onto Orange Turnpike.
Yeah, across from Valero.
Yep. So that one, the frontage, and now here's the interesting thing. They also have frontage on Spring Street, although I don't know that they want to advertise there because I don't know who goes by. But they are about 400 linear feet of frontage. And then, of course, they have Spring Street too.
I mean, in real life, the purpose of a for sale sign on a commercial property, or for that matter, on any other property, is to alert somebody that that property is for sale. But you don't get a lot of people who see the sign, walk onto the property, and make you an offer. That's not the way it works. So, you know, one sign on 17, if you're looking for something, you see it, you tell your realtor you saw it there, they figure out where it is, and they start the process. So, I mean, I'm not sure that this is, you know.
So I think we're tending to also think about the large parcels that might be for sale. What about a small commercial property in the hamlet? Is 32 square feet okay?
Mm.
I
I'd
mean,
hate if I would, you can imagine that, it's not happening, we hope, but a lot of large signs in the hamlet, if we allow that to go forward. I wonder if there should be, for smaller frontage, a smaller sign size.
Yeah, I mean it's okay. I think throughout most of the town it's okay. I would just say that when you're in the hamlet itself, but then you weigh that against how many properties are actually going to be for sale at any one time.
Right.
Is it a concern? I just wanted to raise it because as I'm panning, obviously the hamlet has shorter frontages and smaller lots. So 32 square feet is like an 8x4 sign. Is that pretty standard, Jay? Did you ask? As far as
most standard commercial real estate signs are in the 4x4, 4x6, 4x5, that kind of range.
Mm-hmm.
The largest sign that you usually get is 4x8 because, quite frankly, that's how big a piece of plywood is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we came up with the number. I mean, we're not going to get suddenly a proliferation of 4x8 signs willy-nilly because we give that maximum. But again, I had to put something in. Marissa and I had to put something in so people could tell us why it was wrong. So we want to make it 30 feet because that's a 5x6 sign, or 24 feet because that's a 4x6 sign. Whatever.
Well, what do you know about what the size of the Tuxedo Auto Body sign is? Because that's quite large, I would say, wouldn't you, Maria?
And that has 2 frontages, I think. Oh, sorry, Tuxedo Auto Body. You said. I'm thinking of the other one on the corner.
Right.
Well, I mean, there's
that's a large sign.
I mean, don't know. But you've just seen why it's a large sign, because when you're cruising past it at 55 miles an hour, the letters have to be big enough that you can see them. I mean, and that's the reason why commercial properties are looking for larger signs.
I mean, do you think I feel a little bit more comfortable with 24 square feet if you think that would be sufficient, but maybe we need to go check out the Tuxedo Auto Body sign and measure that.
How long has that been up?
About a month, between a month or 2.
More than that.
Oh, it has been
more than that. Oh yeah.
I'm just wondering if it got captured in Google, or if it's too.
It's been more than 2 months.
Oh, it's at least 6.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, by the way, can I share my screen?
Yeah, I think. Or does Jay have to stop? Okay.
No, I think you're coming up.
Share. Can you see that?
Well, I'm seeing it says you're starting to share, so it'll pop up. Okay, there we go.
So this is where Tuxedo Plaza is going to be built. That's the size of the sign.
Well, you know, it's down to
Doesn't
the
look very
frame.
big.
Look at the condition of it in your picture, and I looked at it the other day,
Right.
and all that's left is the frame.
Yeah.
Sign is
this.
down.
Well, it's already deteriorating here. At least at this time when this photo was taken, you know, that's what was allowed for commercial. It was just like a residential, no different.
Right, that's what's currently allowed. So actually, this Keller Williams sign that you're showing us is technically in violation of the code.
That's so's the junk luggers sign on the pole.
So is the junk lugger sign.
There
So
you
we should
go.
call them up and tell them to take their signs down, or it's $250 a pop,
Dave, there's the phone
or
number.
15 days in jail, or both.
I think that's gone now.
I was just trying to see. You said Tuxedo Auto Body, right?
It's a little further down.
Yep, you're heading in the right direction.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's going to be anything there. Here, look at this.
That sign actually isn't there right now,
It's
That's
on
the
private
rent,
property.
yeah.
but it's
And
a
I think
billboard.
I think that's in
So-
the state right away, by the way.
Yeah.
Yep.
If it's in the state, that one might be, and if it's in the state right of way, there's nothing we can do about it. And if it's on private property and it's been there continuously since '87, there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah.
Or when
So,
this code was enacted.
Isn't that Hank? Is that Hank's sign?
Yep. Hank's
So-
on-
Is that his?
yeah,
Or-
that's his.
Well, he must have gotten some sort of permit to put it in the right of way. It looks like it might be in the right of way.
so
Little sign that says that's underneath it.
that is a political sign.
Right.
War
War
not
is not the answer.
right.
Hank
And
is on
that's
the
where you-
phone.
And
Okay.
you cannot control that.
Okay. I unmute Hank.
I just unmuted him. Hank, are you there? Hello, Hank. Okay.
He's laying low on this one.
Yeah.
I was there the other day. There currently is no sign on that.
Wait a
stand.
He said I put up a sign thanking DOT for killing my grass.
Right.
Uh,
I was wondering what that meant. I
Yeah,
saw
I
that
know,
little
me
sign
too.
put there.
Okay, here we go.
So there you go. There's their sign for Tuxedo Plaza.
And,
Yeah.
and this is the other interesting thing with signs is whether you consider that one sign face or two sign faces. Usually, if it's back to back, you consider it when you're considering the dimension of the sign. You know, so there's the 32 square feet for each of the sign faces or for one of the sign faces.
Okay. Sign area. The entire sign where sign has back-to-back faces, only one face shall be used to determine sign area.
Okay. So
So-
in this instance, is it back to back?
It is not. Those faces would count as sign as
One
it's
sign.
either one double wide sign or it's two signs.
Okay, so this one is the whole sign area of both has to be calculated into the 32.
Correct.
Okay, it's not back to back.
Correct.
Okay. It's always useful to look at examples.
Actually, their sign that's up now is bigger than this, I think. The sign by the Tuxedo Inn that's up there now.
Yeah, the imagery here says this is from 2020. I don't know.
It's copyright 2020.
That's true.
It may not be. I'm not sure what program you're using.
It's Google.
That's like saying it's cheese.
It's Google Chrome search.
Okay, so then it doesn't. So then it just has copyright imagery. If you use Google Earth,
Yeah, I was gonna say Google Earth.
standalone will tell you when the photo was taken.
There you go. Look, there were election signs here.
Hey, I don't know that guy.
Right in the
Oh, that's funny.
So this is clearly done sometime around November.
well, it says right there on the bottom right, it says image something captures September 20.
September 2019 and then 2020 copyright. That one actually. Do we have any more for sale signs here? No.
Well, you got temporary signs over here, promoting businesses.
Don't mess with me.
Shop open.
Yeah, so stop right there. So those sandwich board signs, I guess they count too. I mean, right?
You're supposed to have a permit for those.
Okay, so we got a couple of businesses that put them out as they open the business every morning and take them back in.
I think Bentley's puts theirs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's another one over by Bentley's. We saw that one.
And the liquor store is always advertising their specials. So there's one. So I guess we have to.
Are these considered temporary? And are they allowed?
The farmers market is.
The farmers market signs are in the right of way and they have permits for them.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
From the town board.
Yeah, we do that every year.
The other ones, that's in the right of way, and I don't think they have a permit for that sign.
Well, they probably are not supposed to be in the right of way anyway.
That's almost a block in the sidewalk on top of that.
Right. So
They do not have a permit for that.
right. So there are several issues that we're need to work on. But I'd say that the purpose of the document that I had on the screen is to try to resolve this question of getting a commercial real estate sign and address a couple of other issues of modernizing the language.
So here's another iteration. It's on the building.
Yes. They're allowed to be on the building or on a stand.
And then I think we've hit most of the commercial areas in Tuxedo. Between Southfields, the Hamlet, and this one property. So where are you on size of signs for temporary commercial? And is there a difference if there's more frontage now that we've had a kind of an opportunity to take a look at examples of frontages? Do you want to just leave it at one and make it smaller so it really doesn't matter to what it applies?
Well, I'm a little more, if it's like not a two-way sign, I'm more comfortable with 4x6. But I suppose like the one at Tuxedo, that would be too small if they want to do that. So I don't know if we have two different sizes for how they're going to do their sign. Like if it's just one straight across, then it's 4x6. But if you want to do a two-sided sign,
Then you do 32,
I guess.
because each one's going to be 16 then.
Right, 4x4, probably.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be what I would be comfortable with, but see what other people think.
Well, what I would suggest is a couple of things. First of all, we have almost a month until this gets its public meeting, and I'm guessing there are going to be comments there, and which gives us time for people to sort of take a step back and look at this, maybe look at some of the other provisions in the current sign code that this is, augmenting.
Yeah.
And in the proposed regulations that this will be a part of. And then we can sort of pick up these questions of what the right size sign is and all the rest of it based on, after we've had a chance to look at that stuff and measure some signs and do all the rest of it. We don't have to make a decision now.
Yeah, when we did the last sign update, the big one, and actually Mr. Phelps was involved with that. we literally were going out measuring signs. So a lot of the standards that are in that, the current code, came about from those analyses. So right now, I think the questions out there are how many commercial signs, regulate by frontage is a question mark, and then size need to check. And of course, there are other places you can look, not just in the town of Tuxedo, whether you're in Sloatsburg or anywhere else, to see, typical commercial signs and what's reasonable. So
The
I will.
one issue that made sense to me also was, the smaller properties in the hamlet, does then a 4x8 sign just look out of place? If you're just trying to rent a shop like one of those in the town square, does that need to? Is there a way to not make that a big sheet of plywood, nailed to the front of the building? And the other consideration was that one example you showed, Bonnie, where it was the double-sided sign, but not back-to-back, that basically angled sign, because that, in essence, is like two signs, as opposed to the true back-to-back.
Right.
So just uncovering that, I think, since we're trying to nail down a definitive improvement to this code, to Jay's point. But I don't want to belabor this so it's not resolved, by the time this public hearing happens. I mean, otherwise, it's getting ridiculous.
Does it make sense to cut and paste? I mean, it's not very difficult to, take out in Word format the existing sign section and then just redline and quickly cut and paste the new regulation so you can see it in context?
That would be helpful.
Yeah, that would be good.
So we could do that. And like I said, it'll be pretty quick. Okay.
And then as Jay said, we could, whatever we put out for the public to comment on, can be changed once we come to
Right.
agreement.
Okay.
I'm
This is
fine
what we
with
put
Jay
out for
and
the public
Marissa
to comment
taking a
on.
stab at this based on the comments you've heard tonight, Jay. I mean, you've been working on it with Marissa. You've heard pretty much, if you're taking a stab at a draft, what's the objection from anybody?
I mean,
Like you said, it puts something out there that we could all correct later.
well, I mean, this is the draft.
Right. This.
I mean, what I had up on the screen before.
No, I understand. I just thought there was a few other, but based on looking at these screen photos, from Bonnie showing us through Google Earth, that I wasn't considering that angled double sign and, pointing out that both the surfaces of those signs would total up to, what would be equivalent to the one sign. Would you say 8 by 32 square feet? Would those two add up to more than that? Well, then no good.
Right, exactly. But yeah, I'm going to talk to Marissa about the stuff we talked about, and
So I'll quickly send you the red line version, just again, so you can see it all in context. And then I have notes that I'll send to you, Jay, as
Very
I'm
good.
typing
Thank you.
here. And then, you can take it up with Marissa. And then in the meantime, the other board members, if you want to consider, again, the number of signs, frontage, size, based on, again, looking at a few more signs, then that can always be amended with everybody's input.
Sounds good.
All right. Next topic.
Yes. We were thinking about gas stations, and we were kind of looking at the Gulf station in the hamlet and where else we think would be good to have a gas station, or if things could be zoned differently, but current ones could be grandfathered.
So has the board been discussing this?
Yeah, we had a
It's been a
lot of
while.
discussion about the Gulf Station in town.
Well, what stuck in my mind, we were trying to also consider what special permit powers would maybe make some things more permissible, because the notion there was that it would require more oversight by the town board. I think that's where we left off with the general understanding of what special permit adds to the mix. Over.
Yeah. I'm just looking back at some of my notes. I think everybody came away with the thought that gas stations could be allowed in the NB zone, which is the property that's down by, Watchtower up down in Eagle Valley. For that property that nothing's happening with it.
Yeah, Long Meadow Road and the
Sterling Mine.
intersection of
And
Sterling Mine
then,
Road.
so,
Weren't we thinking about like a convenience store, gas, pumps, not a full-blown gas station?
yeah, if I look at my notes, I think the board as a whole was expressing different views, especially with regard to the hamlet and the gas station. I don't know, because I haven't been at every meeting, whether you achieve consensus, but there were some who said, gas station in the hamlet is just not the highest and best use. So that you take it out of the code, and if someone wants to continue the use as is, as a non-conforming use, they could.
Right.
Others said, allow the gas station, but maybe, if it's improved, it would be okay, like a cafe. Again, I think you were in different places here.
Right.
We were, and one of the things that we need to look at, and I encourage the rest of the board members to do so, is in the proposed revisions, there's a special use permit, or a special use permit is required for gas stations. And it pretty much is written to remove gas stations from the town of Tuxedo by natural attrition. I say that without value judgment. But that's how it's written, right? So the first part of it is you can't expand any existing gas stations. The second part is you can't put in any new gas stations. And then there's some bits about how long it takes for a gas station to stop being a gas station if you close it. And a very small amount about accessory uses that pretty much don't allow, you're allowed to sell cigarettes, candy, soft drinks, and similar items. So I take that to be chips. Based on this, the Valero would be, you couldn't do what they do there, which is to have a convenience store. You couldn't sell prepared foods. You certainly couldn't do what's been suggested, some kind of, franchise little mini restaurant inside it. So, the first question
Or make it
is,
a Cumberland Farms.
Jay, you're talking about, I'm sorry, Jay, are you talking about the proposed amendments or the existing?
I'm talking about the proposed. The existing
Okay.
doesn't allow any of those things either. But that's,
right.
At the risk of quoting a bad movie, right? Bad driving movies. What's behind me is not my concern.
I think we're more.
So
yeah,
I would just say, I'm sorry, I would just say that the automotive gas station definition in the code says this use also may include a convenience store for the sale of household goods and groceries.
And that does that include prepared foods or the deli franchises coffee franchises they might want to bring in.
Right. I mean, we have to, right. I mean, we are going to have to look at the definitions. I mean, there's a lot of ambiguity still in gas stations. And I think the real question that has to be answered before we can pursue this much further is, do we think gas stations belong in the town?
Right.
Right. The last iteration of the revisions, by the previous working group, definitely felt that they shouldn't be. It doesn't change the existence of existing non-conforming uses. They stay as long as they stay. But if we're serious about wanting to open up, say, the Eagle Valley Road property to the possibility of a gas station, we're going to have to amend some of this language.
Right. So it was amended at one point under obviously a prior town board, and I can't even tell you at this point which one, that there was a decision to allow existing automotive gas stations to not allow expansion. The rationale being, and new automotive gas stations were not going to be permitted because you're within the Rampo River sole source designated aquifer. And that was the reasoning behind not allowing additional ones, because of the fuel and storage capacity. And then there was language about discontinued uses in terms of removing tanks, pumps, etc. And then there still was this provision in here about accessory uses to what might exist. So this is what exists at this point in time. And so back to Jay's questioning is, and I think we're still at the point of, first of all, I think it sounded that what's come out of the process is that the NB is one potential place where you would allow it.
Right.
And there was a discussion at one point in my notes that there was a discussion whether or not the Tuxedo Inn or Tuxedo Plaza should be NB. And if you allow gas stations and the NB down in Eagle Valley, then you potentially could allow it then Tuxedo. And that's about where we got. I mean, I think you all acknowledge that the Valero's existing, that it's not going away. And a lot of the focus of the discussion has been on the property in the hamlet because of, this other discussions of sale and what could occur there. And so you have very distinct areas where these gas stations are allowed. Although, again, for the majority of them are on Route 17. Obviously, the Eagle Valley is the exception if you want to allow one there.
Wow. I mean, the hamlet is a kind of a tough one because getting it's a nice piece of property that could have maybe a different use that would be more valuable to the owner as well as to the town. And also, I was looking at it today, there's 4 residences that abut that property. So, I wouldn't want to allow a larger, higher canopy, more pumps, bright lights in some area that
a Cumberland Farms would not fit in there. A Cumberland Farms would not fit it. A Cumberland Farms, much 12 type pumps. Even though it has prepared foods and basically a convenience store in it, that would just upset the whole character. Opposite Scott Lesko's Orange Top, next to the church, it just would seem so out of place in my mind.
Right.
to
And
what,
it really
yeah, the
is residential around
No.
it. I was looking at there's really 4 homes right there. And as you say, the church. And, the hamlet is just kind of unique in that we want to support the small businesses like Bentley's that could have a hard time competing with a Subway franchise, something like that in a convenience store type
to me,
place.
the what we call the hamlet is the one area that, has some historic look to preserve. I mean, as Bonnie's bringing it up, the church, the Tuxedo Square, the post office, of course, the Tuxedo Park Village Gate,
The Mercantile Building.
The Mercantile Building.
Maybe not so much.
But I mean, it still has the potential with the brick facade. I mean, with some renderings like I've seen, with the canopies and things like that. Again, then to just throw in a 7-Eleven would just be like, wow, this doesn't.
Well, so again, we have. There are currently 2 gas stations in town. We could write the zoning and say there are no gas stations allowed in town, period. And we'd still have 2 gas stations in town until they stop being gas stations.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
And then, they wouldn't be able to, as the proposed zoning currently states, they wouldn't be allowed to enlarge them. We have to look at the question of how we resolve this idea of there being convenience stores in them versus places that sell tobacco and soda pop. And what's currently there is probably, reasonable, unless we're saying things like we would like to have maybe the opportunity for someone to decide to put a gas station on Eagle Valley Road or some other place. I mean,
Well, that's the one on Sterling Mine in Eagle Valley is the only neighborhood business zone, correct, Bonnie? In the proposed?
At this point, yes, even though it's been talked about potentially being applied to the Tuxedo Plaza area as well.
Right. So if we keep that as the only neighborhood business, we could consider allowing a convenience store gas station, maybe not a full-blown, service area, in a neighborhood business zone, since that's the only one.
So this property,
you could allow it. I mean, what's the demand going to be? I mean, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, for fossil fuel cars. So, I mean, I think to Jay's point, if I understand it correctly, I mean, we have to that can, if they don't change it, it could stay as it is. Especially I think we're mostly talking about the Gulf Station next to the church. I mean, that can continue. And would we allow a cafe to be part of that extension?
So I'm just looking.
How much else do you have? Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to check out the size. So the Cumberland, the Gulf property is about a half acre. And
wow, that's all.
And I just wanted to see here. This is the Cumberland property right in here.
Right.
Sorry. That's about an acre to accommodate that Cumberland.
Mm-hmm.
Because part of this is from a size perspective, what are you really going to get?
Right. Yeah, what's the reality that you could put there anyway?
Right. This is the quick check.
Where is this station?
This is a Monroe. This is the quick check.
Okay. thanks.
17 M.
So that's
On the way
about
to Stop Shop.
60. Yeah, that's about 64,000 square feet. Now I could tell you, there's a Sunoco, the one that's by the shop, right? I'm just going to Monroe because A, it's my area, and B, that we have a lot of stations. So here we go. Here's the Sunoco. Am I in the right place? No, I'm not.
I think you're too far west.
I am. There's the shop, right? This is the Sunoco. Interesting, because I think it's on 2 properties,
Yeah, I think you're right.
right?
Yeah, I could see the store is on the other property.
Yeah, so let's just do this.
Yeah.
You know, because that's about an acre.
So the Tuxedo is half that. Tuxedo Golf.
Here's the one when you're coming in.
Oh, Wally's.
This is
Yeah, mobile space.
this is they're 2. I think they're 2 mobiles when you come in. This one's 20,000.
Yeah, that's a small operation. I think maybe
Yep.
6 pumps tops.
Yep. So that's kind of probably the order of magnitude that you're going to fit. This is the other mobile. And I think that's on the smaller side too. That's 17,500. So you could fit that kind of a mobile there. And I can tell you, maneuvering in this property is not the easiest.
Yeah, and we've got Route 17. I mean, 17M is a main road, but not as crazy as our beloved Route 17. That I think is a more, you know, I always get concerned, especially if they decided to expand to the point where tractor trailers could come in, if they would consider doing that, and then tractor trailers trying to get out of that property would be very dangerous.
There is a brand new Stewart's in Ellenville. And I'm curious what the size of that is. It's right here. Hopefully this is the new one.
I just saw it.
That's not it. I'm just curious because this is a much more village type environment. I'm not going to find it. So, I think that Stewart's probably is also on a larger than half-acre parcel because of the number of pumps they have. If you have 20,000 square feet, I think what you might get is again a small station with a few pumps and a small convenience area. I don't know that you're going to get that much. If you want actually the bigger type Cumberland and the bigger type Quick Check, if that's what you're aiming for, you're not going to get that. I don't believe.
I'm thankful for that because I've been in that Cumberland Farms in Monroe. It was a horrible experience.
It's very busy.
It's way busy. It's horrible. Getting in, it was the most inconvenient convenience store I've ever been to.
Mm-hmm. So
it was terrible.
So I just wanted to kind of give you a sense of size related to some of the area gas stations and getting back to now, certainly a Cumberland or a Stewart's could, or a Quick Check could definitely fit on the NB property down in Eagle Valley. They have plenty of room.
Some of the ideas I heard for this Gulf station were you know, the amount of pumps they have there, the amount of traffic they get for gas. I mean, it's pretty much you're running on empty and you can't make it to Mawa, you know, why you would get gas there, let's face it. And, you know, if it had a retro market in there and kind of preserved some of that, you know, American pickers kind of feel to it that, you know, that people try to restore these gas stations to look a little bit more period, which I think is what this part of Tuxedo has to offer with the other buildings, you know. So the existing notion to me with some permissible modifications, and if that's done by special permit, I'm not clear as to, you know, how that adds the town board's seal of approval to some of this stuff.
I think
I would be concerned about some of the verbiage you were pointing out there, Bonnie, about, you know, proximity to the Ramapo River and you know, enlarged gasoline tanks buried and things like that. You know, but I would think if there was some permissible variation to the existing use that really didn't allow you know, the building to go up 3 stories and you know, inconvenience the residents that live around there and just totally blow the look of the town out because it's just an eyesore.
Well, if we look at some of the other special use conditions,
okay,
you know, the section on car washes has some very specific language about what they can look like, right? I mean,
okay.
you have to have
That's
fake
always-
windows on a car wash so that you can't, because long blank walls aren't allowed, right? And roof styles are specified.
Okay.
So we certainly could work some architectural requirements into whatever the special use conditions are. They're not there now, but I mean,
Right.
so
That's always been
I
my
think
point. You know, the look means a lot. You know, and you know, to do the zoning uses, you know, especially on a lot like this without the architectural defined terms, to me, is only half the job.
I think that property or the properties that are commercial along 17 would be subject to ARB approval.
Right.
So you would have that, and they should be using whatever precedent is in the hamlet in terms of architecture in some way.
I'm not sure that's all that well defined, you know, having been to those workshops on it, but that could be what we add.
Yeah, I mean, you could either rely on the ARB to use its discretion and judgment, or in the law itself, you could, again, be explicit and say that you want, as part of any review of the gas station, to consider, you know, any historic buildings that may exist that establish a, you know, precedent.
And would lighting standards be part of that because of the residences in the area?
Yeah, you always want to have them, you know, that they're recessed. There's usually verbiage. That's the biggie, ensuring that the lighting isn't extending below the canopy line. But again, I think, do you want to allow it? Do you want to allow it to expand? Or would you rather it just be something that is, you know, a non-conforming use that can continue? And maybe with some minor improvements, but no major improvements.
Yeah, when you say expand, if I'm not thinking adding 10 new pumps, but, you know, if the bays became a nice cafe coffee shop or something along those lines, you know, maybe. But
so
go ahead, Jack.
well, I mean, all of that is doable. Like I'm saying, then we need to revisit the special use conditions, and we need to revisit the permitted accessory uses. Right now, a cafe can't be an accessory use to a gas station?
You can, so there are some codes that I've seen that you don't have to continue to allow it. You can allow it as a non-conforming use, but then within the non-conforming use provisions, you can allow some flexibility subject to review. If there's an upgrade, you can allow a 20% expansion. You could also treat it as a use, calling it a gas station in existence on the effective date of this chapter. So you're not introducing more of them, but you're setting parameters for what the pre-existing ones can do. And that's actually how we were dealing with the fuel storage for a while before I think at some point the board said, no, we'll make it non-conforming. You know, when and I'm referring to SOS. So yeah, you know, you could treat it as any gas station in existence on the effective date of this chapter can continue. They're allowed a certain amount of expansion. They're allowed to do certain activities, but they can't go beyond a certain size, you know, and pick a reasonable percentage.
Well, that sounds reasonable. And you're saying there would be flexibility if they wanted to no longer be a service area, but wanted to convert that into a cafe, like Ken was saying.
Yeah.
I
To
mean,
those things that are
a lot of
non.
work into the trails. I mean, a lot of people talk. Where's the hiking store? You know, where's that type of outdoors shop? You know, could be a mixed use kind of a shop, but you know, the market demand has to dictate a lot of that.
All right. Do we want? That sounds good. And then, do we want to allow it?
So that would be within the hamlet zone,
right? And in the neighborhood business,
and then neighborhood could be new.
And would it be possible to do like the convenience store, gas station, and not without the service area, or no, the work on the cars and inspect?
What have you got against service areas?
I
don't have an issue with that either.
When you say service, you mean like gas? You mean car wash, or
no, like you know,
or having the
tires and change, and you work on the engines and all of that. I don't know. It just seems.
Oh, you're talking about the auto body part of it.
Well, not auto body, just you know, working on the engines. Like.
Okay.
I mean,
well, I think what I'd have an objection to, Michelle, is if you know there's a bunch of junkers all laying around the lot. I mean, then you have to have some kind of definitions of screening and you know, again, back to the architectural type thing.
So Michelle, it sounds like, you know, a quick check with a convenience store.
Yeah, exactly.
And with the pumps, and yeah, you have a tire pressure gauge, and you might have that kind of stuff, but not a full blown, you know, auto body shop plus gas station plus convenience store.
Right, because it's a big building, and you know, we would hope to attract maybe medical offices, some other type of retail. And do they want to be in the same building as cars that have exhaust coming out? And you know, I just see that the actual putting things up on the.
Yeah,
I just don't think that's good. I mean, if it were a standalone, yeah, I wouldn't have a problem, but it's part of a larger building that we're hoping will have something like, you know, it seems it's a good spot for medical offices or other type of retail.
I don't think the intent of the MB was to allow auto body. I think, yeah, a lot of it was offices, it was retail. And so you were going to add gas station to it. But gas station, at least is the way that it's defined right now. You know, the intent is not to allow auto body repair work, major.
Let's be clear. The current definition of a gas station includes repairs, but not auto body work, not painting.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Our definition of an automotive repair facility doesn't sell gasoline necessarily, but does mechanical repairs and sheet metal repairs and painting. All right. So we're talking about different things here.
So what
Yep.
would be the definition of what I'm talking about for the neighborhood business zone out on Sterling Mine Road? A convenience store with gas station pumps.
That would
What is
be
that
a convenience store, and then we'd have to look at whether gas pumps were an acceptable accessory use to a gas station.
Okay.
To a convenience store.
Okay.
That's there's two ways to do it. You can have a fueling station that has an accessory use of a shop, or you can have a store that has an accessory use of a gas station.
Would it be inappropriate to try to converse with the owner of that property and say, like, what the hell's going on there? What are you hoping? What's the obstacle to moving you forward?
I would say that before we have that conversation, we should have a conversation with him that says, you want to start fixing your building, you want to start us to start finding it $250 a day plus 15 days in jail.
Well, that's one way to get him to talk to you for sure. Absolutely. I'm with you on that. I mean, the overgrowth there is certainly against our code already.
So I know we were talking about definitions and what's intended and what, again, we can revise what's there, but getting back to neighborhood business, you want gas stations with the convenience stores that have those minor, tire, gauges, tire filling little stations, but it sounded like you didn't want full-blown auto body. Is that correct?
That would be my vote, yes.
I think so. I think the people in the Woodlands and down in Eagle Valley, but I think maybe it was Jay's point a few meetings ago when we were talking about this. Look, we were just trying to not overly restrict the properties that because market demand is going to be what's going to end up there anyway. I mean, we're supposing what we think it could be, and would a convenience store with gas pumps be possibly one of those things that could be commercially viable and not offensive to the community? I think so. But why hasn't it developed for medical offices? That's kind of my question. I mean, somebody's been sitting on a property there for a long time with a sign outside. I'm just not clear why it hasn't ever taken off. Somebody invested a lot of money in building that building, but it went nowhere. It's puzzling as to we're pondering all these uses. I'm sure the person who owns the property must have too. What obstacles has the person hit? Why has nobody ever taken a look at it? I'm not sure what's going on there.
I mean, that might be a conversation worth having. I want to just harp on this sort of in auto body shops are one thing, and even in commercial real estate, auto body shops are like the least preferable auto repair business available because they smell like paint and all the rest of them. Auto repair shops that don't necessarily do body work are of more utility, and actually around here, if I was going to get rid of something at the Gulf station, and I'm not saying we have the power to do this, but I'd get rid of the gas pumps and keep the repair facility, because we're just going to go to get your car inspected around here if you live in the hamlet or in the park. So,
like Sarkis in Sloatsburg, that's what they do.
Right.
Yeah, there used to be C&E in Southfields, but they're gone now.
Right.
The property is, available for rent or whatever.
Well, this is a good segue, Jay, because the next topic is auto body.
Right. So if I can finish my thought, let's be careful about what we're going to rule out and rule in as acceptable uses.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, Bonnie, over to you.
Well, so that, as I said, that's a good segue because, and there are these gradations. you have the gas station, you might have a gas station with a repair facility, you may just have a repair facility, and then you may have an auto body type use, which is very involved as far as, and actually, let me bring up the definitions, the way they're defined, at least at this point in time. So right now, automotive gas station, commercial use involving sale of gasoline, which may or may not include electrical vehicle charging station or sale of minor motor vehicle accessories, and which may or may not include facilities for otherwise servicing motor vehicles, but not including painting thereof. And then automotive repair facility, commercial use where motor vehicles, including their mechanical systems and body structure, are repaired. This use includes automotive painting conducted in conjunction with the repair work. So this is much more of that heavier duty automotive repair type facility, because some car's been in a crash, they're getting new parts. Now you have to paint them. In theory, I guess they could come painted, but normally, a lot of the painting's done in the auto body place. So we have a couple now. And Michelle, what was your thoughts? This was included on the agenda. Again, is this a discussion of where to allow it or where not to allow it?
Exactly. We have the Tuxedo auto body property for sale. And then we have the other property that's right next to Valero that had been an auto body shop and then was sold. And now an auto body shop again. And then, as Maria said, there was another one in Southfield. So, the thought is, as much as we want to try and do something for Southfields, we don't want it to have 3 auto body shops because of they're not being screened. I was very discouraged when I drove by and saw the auto body shop, that the new one next to Valero. The cars are jammed in behind that chicken wire fence, and all the junk cars and beat up cars, and no screening. So that's what it looked like before the new people moved in.
Right.
So I just think it's unfortunate for Southfields. And if we have 3 places like this, who else is going to be attracted to invest in there?
Yeah, but don't we already have?
Plus this place. That's right. I forgot about this place. It's not. I don't know what that is. It's an auto
car wash. It's like a car wash, detailing and car wash.
Plus, there was an additional one, right, Maria?
Yeah,
No, that's the one you were just looking at. The one that you say had the chicken wire. That was C&E.
Yeah.
Oh, right. So that's the one. Right. So now, if you drive by it, it's very discouraging what it looks like.
But don't we already have rules on the books about screening and maintaining properties and not having derelict vehicles on properties for any significant length of time and all the rest of it?
We do.
Okay. So there are,
it's an enforcement issue.
I think that we are. I'm concerned about overreach, and I think trying to say something like you can only have 2 auto body places in a particular neighborhood or area, or however you're going to define it, seems a little excessive. If we have, if we're going to say that there are particular zones, and you would think that Route 17 would be the right one for it, in the general business district, we're going to allow this kind of business, then, the market will take care of how many of them there are, and enforcement of the various rules about screening and property maintenance should take care of those other issues. But maybe I'm missing the point.
No, I mean, you're right. I agree with you. It's just kind of unfortunate because I mean, if you saw the place now, you wouldn't believe it. And you're right. It needs to be the number of vehicles there screened, and then I guess it doesn't matter. But
Well, I
I mean,
mean,
'cause the photo we're looking at right there, you know, you're saying, well, it's not the most attractive building, but it was painted and it's not surrounded by a bunch of derelict vehicles.
right. Well,
You
this
know.
is before they moved in.
yeah,
Right.
you know,
And then it's like, okay, meet the new neighbors and say, what the hell is this? You know, how
You-
is this? You know, here's the code that you're supposed to be following. You know, we welcome new businesses, but you got to follow the rules.
I mean, you ultimately are making determinations as to what you think is appropriate within your community. And you don't have to allow automotive repair stations. You are on a highway, you have them now. Maybe do want them because you think that they're, you know, resources that should be in the town. But there is a tendency for them to turn into this.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
And so without a lot of code enforcement, you know, I know Tuxedo Auto Body, I believe there was litigation. They weren't supposed to sell cars.
Yep.
But, and yet it happens. So
C&E was selling cars too. The one
Yeah.
across the street from next door to the previous owner of that business, C&E, they were selling cars too.
right.
You'll always be in court. I mean, what you were just showing, Bonnie, where the NJB in Sloatsburg, and then it looks like there's a nice old house right next to it, and then, God, I'd be screaming if I lived in that house, and then you look right next door, and it's just nothing but old junky cars. It's like, ugh.
Here's
Just
Jan's
would you
Medicar. Is your head towards Suffern?
I mean,
Yeah.
the current code, not even what we're working on. Current code says you're not allowed to store junk cars. The building official can give you 5 days, you know, if he violates, you get 5 days to remove it, or it's $1,000 a day. So
Now this one doesn't look bad.
This is actually one of the definitely, you know, this individual keeps her property up.
Yeah.
Right. No, it is enforcement, Jay. Is there any way to prevent more? I mean, we have three.
prevent more what?
Well, I'm just,
More automotive body.
more auto body, you know, places in Southfields. That's a special zone, isn't it? Isn't it Southfields Hamlet District?
Yes.
So if we look at maybe zoning just, you know, for that district.
Maybe
I just would like
allowing.
to see, I would love to see something happen there but in Southfields.
Wasn't there, I mean, are there people that are considering buying the property, thinking of doing something else with it that's not an auto body?
Which property is that?
The Tuxedo Auto Body.
Don't know. I haven't heard.
I thought it was sold, and that was the whole point a few weeks ago when we were asking, so why is the for sale sign still there? You know, Dave Nakes told me it was purchased, and he met with the new owner, and then the point is like, so why is the sign still there? Over.
So,
You know, I keep going to Hyde Park because they are very big into architectural review. That function is with the planning board. And I don't know if you can see it here, but they have a brand new Mavis. Oh, you can see it a little bit here.
yeah.
That's their Mavis. You know, I think if you're
acceptable.
if you have automotive repair, I mean, in theory, I guess tires could be part of automotive repair. You know, I think they do oil changes. You can have something that's attractive, but you have to really hold an applicant's feet to the fire to get this as opposed to what you have. And
Yeah.
code enforcement is huge.
Well, like with this example, Bonnie, a Mavis tire, you typically don't leave your vehicle. You drive in, they service it. It's not like a bunch of junkers end up outside the building and stay there for years.
Good point.
It's drive in and drive out. All that kind of work is done in 2 hours or less, typically.
Yeah,
and,
right.
That definitely lends itself to not becoming those eyesores you were showing earlier.
Yeah, very good point.
So can we tighten up the restrictions, or can we?
Maybe just enforcement. I mean, it looks like the restrictions are there already.
I mean, part of your reaction is based on what you have now, and it seems to me the reaction is we don't want them because what we have now is not good.
Right.
It's not attractive, and it's not something that is appealing, and it's not an asset, at least visually. It probably generates tax revenues, but from an aesthetic perspective and an image of Tuxedo, that doesn't fit your ideal. And so, and to what extent is it servicing people who are in Tuxedo? They're benefiting from the drive-by traffic, probably, to some extent. If you allow these, you can put all kinds of standards, all kinds of screening requirements. But ultimately, this gets down to enforcement. And if you're not going to enforce it, it has the potential to proliferate into and become something you do not like and want.
Well, yeah, we're at that point. Can we? So I guess it's enforcement, and maybe looking
to me,
at
banking on enforcement is not a strong card to play.
So I think.
Wait. You can't. We can make all the rules we want. If the issue is that we're not enforcing them, then making more rules doesn't fix the problem.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm
So
agreeing with
then that sounds like a meeting for an executive session, but then we have other issues to discuss.
Yeah.
So I think fundamentally the board should just weigh in individually on, do you want to allow the existing auto bodies to continue? And again, you need code enforcement. Do you want to allow, because they're allowed in zoning districts? So, if it's in the, the Southfields Hamlet, you're going to continue to allow it there. It's going to apply to any of those properties within the SH district. So you could get more. And so do you want more? Where do you want them? You also have the GB zone that's along 17. I don't think you want them in the TT zone. You do have the GB zone that's over by, Contractors Road. If you're going to allow these auto body stations, where would you allow them if you want them? So, and just to remind you, here's the zoning map right now. So the SH zoning district covers that area that we're talking about in Southfields, including the auto body shop. And we get down to the GB along 17 and farther down. GB up by Tuxedo and then farther, and where the contractors' yards are, and then down by the Tuxedo Hamlet. I mean, I think everybody needs to weigh in. What do you think as far as auto body shops? So we can kind of move on from this.
Okay. I mean, your Mavis looks pretty nice.
So Michelle, just express what you would like to see in the best of all worlds.
Okay. Well, my main thing for auto body shops would be no more in the South of Hamlet somehow. And to the new owners of Tuxedo Auto Body and C&E, them to screen and limit the number of junkers on their lot and not be in a for sale market because they're not supposed to be. And then for the auto spa, if there's some way to, I don't know, we also, I guess, rent vehicles. Take a look at make sure those are permissible uses.
So renting vehicles, if someone wanted to put an Avis in, you wouldn't care? With proper standards?
With standards, I guess. Yeah. I mean, I would, in an ideal world, I would love for the auto body shop and the Red Apple to be one integral property that would be an amazing attraction.
Right.
If you want my ideal world.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So in general, you're cool on automotive related uses in general because of their appearances, especially, and other reasons.
Yeah, if they weren't selling cars, if they were screening, if they were limited in the number of junkers they have out front, and how long those can be without, the weeds growing up all around them.
And that's for the pre-existing, because in general you didn't want more in Southfields.
I'm sorry, say that again.
You mentioned,
more.
Michelle, you didn't want more in Southfield, so this was more about getting the existing ones to upgrade to a better appearance.
Correct.
Okay. Maria?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, for example, right in Southfields, that the wash machine, the one that they do like hand washing or whatever, they keep that property pretty nice. They usually keep it pretty nicely. They're not extra cars, stuck in weird places or whatever. But I, it seems like there's a lot of body shops in one little area. So, I mean, I don't know if we can do anything.
That come and go. They've come and gone, And I'm sorry, Maria, please go ahead.
No, but I mean, if we can say, I don't know, we can limit the number or something. I mean, there doesn't have to be, if there's going to be an auto shop at Tuxedo Auto Shop, then we don't need another C&E. And, they're like competing.
Well,
I
think both Ken and Maria, you just made the points. When you're thinking about the day spa, it's not auto body repair. They're just coming in with vehicles that they are, detailing. When we talk about the Mavis,
nobody's leaving their car. Yeah, they do have. I think they do some modest U-Haul rentals.
Yeah, they do. They do.
Which is also what Tuxedo Gulf does. Interestingly.
Right. Right.
They both have this little side U-Haul thing, where they keep a minimal number of small trailers. I've never seen, a big inventory.
Yeah.
So Ken, since you're speaking now, what are your thoughts? So I think, because you and Maria are kind of on the same point about there's a difference between an auto body shop and some of the other automotive related uses.
The Mavis thing, especially with the architectural details. I'm going to keep coming back to that. If a place had architectural standards, I'm less concerned about what's behind a pretty wall than, just worrying about uses and it could look like anything, because, you can make even a very suitable use look horrible, but what my brain keeps coming back to, though, is there's some key properties that we're talking about. We're talking, obviously the Red Apple, this this facility on Sterling Mine Road and Long Meadow Road, in that neighborhood business, the Tuxedo station. You know, we keep coming back to these same places, and even Hickory Hollow. The owner there wants to talk to us all the time. You know, I'm just wondering, you know, do we try to make a concerted effort to speak with 4 or 5 of these key property owners and really try to identify, okay, we're mulling this over like we're real estate moguls. You know, why haven't you been moved forward with the Red Apple? Why haven't the Sterling Mine Road property? You know, Mike Yeager at Hickory Hollow is dying to speak with us, you know, about his ideas. And then there's absolutely the thing of enforcement. So, all right, over. But again, now you have this Mavis thing. I mean, that wouldn't be horrible. I think, but of course, I'd want to hear from the people who live in Southfields. You know, it's easy for me to say what I'd like to see, but I don't live next door to it.
Yeah.
So Ken, so with regard to auto body shops as opposed to a Mavis, are you more concerned about auto body shops than
I am.
a Mavis or a
concerned
detailing?
about anything that has long-term inventory sitting there. You know, we have a tenant in our own property on Long Meadow Road, and part of my conversation with the code enforcement officer is it's supposed to be a sandblasting business, and it's like you look at some of the stuff that's been sitting there for years. It's like, no, if you're going to sandblast this in the next 30 days, that would be one thing. But it's been sitting here for 3 years, you know. And I know you're supposed to enforce the code, but you know, in a little town, that'll end up being, you know, a 6-person job, you know. But that's a whole nother story, like Jay said, and it's not a zoning conversation.
So Jay, where are you on this?
I'm sorry, can you refine the question, please?
So the question is, does the town want to allow the pre-existing auto body uses to continue? Should there be enforcement is separate, that's not zoning. Do you want to allow new auto body uses and where? Do you want to differentiate between auto body uses and where they're allowed versus other types of auto-related uses like a tire center, a detailer, where you don't have this inventory or sitting of vehicles that are in disrepair and that are, you know, have been in collisions, and you know where that entity, that business functions differently.
Right. Okay. So, first of all, if it's existing, it's existing no matter what we do. But I think that there needs to be a better differentiation in the definitions of different types of auto service.
Mm-hmm.
So we have fueling, we have mechanical repairs, which would include things like, you know, you think oil changes, getting your car up on a lift, tires, and then you have auto body and painting, which would be its own category. I think that auto body and painting is a use that should be only allowed in our most industrial use areas, because it's our most industrial use. Repairs of various kinds and, you know, tire sales and whatnot are more of a general business kind of use, appropriately so. And I think that once those things are sort of established and they're parsed out to the correct zones, as many as the market will bear. That's important. I mean, I see a lot of, you know, there's this. I feel this sort of the same way about this as, I get the same feeling anyway as when we talk about dry cleaning. we're perfectly happy to have a place to drop off and pick up our dry cleaning, but we don't want the dry cleaning actually done in our town because of the smell. And
it was at the time it was written. Just sorry to interject here. When it was written, it had more to do with the chemicals
I
that
understand.
are used in dry cleaning, right? And that's why they wanted more of a depot than actually doing it on site.
Right. But all that does is move the dirty part of the business to some other town. And, stomping around about economic justice can get a little, it's an easy thing to say and a hard thing to do. But, if Lamborghini came and said, we want to put we're going to buy up the Red Apple Rest and the 6 properties there, and we want to put our regional auto repair facility in for Lamborghinis, I think everybody would go, sounds good to us.
They know Lamborghini has a particular
clientele and
well,
panache.
right, and it's a higher end product, and therefore the image is important to them.
Right.
Sure. Okay. But at the end of the day, you're still fixing cars. So I think that we should parse out the definitions better. We should then use the impacts on the neighbors to put them in the right districts, and then let them have at it.
Do you have a sense of where? So I think that between Maria, Ken, and Michelle, the oil changes, the tires, the things that don't require a lot of inventory, and we're not talking about collision type repair work, they're more receptive to allowing them in other places. So it's still subject to standards, but I think the one that's of concern is the auto body. And what I've heard is, at least from Maria and Michelle, that in the best of all worlds, you don't want any more auto body. And so my question to you is, would it be okay to have additional auto bodies in other places in the town?
Yes.
The one place that comes to my mind might be Contractors Road. I mean,
Contractors Road, which is right next to the river?
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, painting.
I
Yeah,
mean,
okay. We got Di Marino down there, and that's no joy.
I mean, it's.
So where, Jay, would you be thinking of?
Well, I mean, quite frankly, I think that any of the any of the GB zones would be reasonable for auto repair facilities.
Okay.
And with proper containment and proper enforcement, even what you guys are calling what are really auto body places where painting is allowed. Those are actually relatively contained, and if you're following modern standards, relatively non-polluting businesses. You can.
Are you okay? Are you okay with new ones in the town center zone or the Southfields Hamlet zone?
Well, town center, I don't think is appropriate for that kind of business.
Okay.
But
and Southfields, would additional or pre-existing?
Well, pre-existing is pre-existing, and quite frankly, I don't know. I don't have a good enough feeling, but it seems to me that the sort of the way it's been parsed out, the Southfields business district is seen as being a little rough around the edges necessarily than downtown Tuxedo. I don't know if that's necessarily appropriate, but that certainly seems how it's been parsed out. I don't live in that part of town, so I don't want to, You don't
want to opine.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't live in. Yeah, I don't know enough about what's going on there.
Okay.
But we are allowing, but it's a business district. I guess not an industrial district, right? There's a reason it's not a GB. So maybe we're trying to restrict this to like a GB district kind of thing.
Do we have GB district A section of the GB that's not along the river?
No.
So right now, Hickory Hollow is GB.
Oh, right.
And we have basically Tuxedo and the various landscaping businesses that are along the river. Those are GB.
Right.
And you have the contractor's yard, the fuel storage depot, and going down to this border of Sloatsburg, that's all GB.
But the other thing is, I mean,
it's kind of where GB is now.
Right. Automotive businesses, are known for having the possibility of environmental impacts because there have been some bad ones in past. But they are, there are already a lot of rules. Again, it comes back to enforcement and regulation and inspection and all the rest of it.
Is Dave on?
I think he can't. Let me just.
I'm
there
here.
he is. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, Dave, we're talking about automotive-related uses and where they should be allowed. And there's been this discussion of automotive-related uses, and I think Michelle and Ken and Maria talk about, there's a difference between a tire place and a detailing place, because you don't have inventory. It's not like an auto body place where you're going to have vehicles that have been in collisions that are going to be there waiting for parts. So you have a lot of storage, some of it outdoor. Jay's making the point that we need to parse out the differences between those types of automotive related uses and then decide where they should go. Maria and Ken and Michelle are less in favor of allowing additional auto body uses beyond those that already exist, like in Southfield. And Jay is more open to that, like in the GB zones.
Yeah, I'm right with Jay on all this. I've been listening. I don't know. I believe we have to absolutely parse it out. I mean, how are you going to say something is automotive and then you're going to describe things within that parent description as being acceptable? Mm-hmm. So that has to be vetted. We have to figure it out. And I'm not going to say I'm going to agree with, an auto body shop, but a lot of things have to go with that. I mean, we have to like special use requirements. I mean, it'll have to go through the planning board to where their architectural review. So I don't know. This spawns a lot of more conversation. This is getting wider in scope than it is narrowing. So I appreciate that, because this is what we're charged with doing here. But in terms of an answer for what you just asked me, I kind of subscribe to everything that Jay said.
Okay. So I think what everybody is on board about is parsing out the automotive type uses, and that some are more acceptable than others. And the one that still needs to be resolved ultimately between the town board members is whether you allow additional auto body uses in general. Because I think you have at least two that aren't really in favor of allowing more. I don't think Ken was really that in favor of allowing more. And then you and Jay are, in the right places and subject to the right standards.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, what do we do?
I'd go along with the, Jay was mentioning about the more commercial space, the more industrial, I think might have been the word. And really, when I'm only thinking in terms of those auto body shops that would have, accumulating inventory that, and then of course, even with that, making sure there's some type of architectural screening and making sure that we're dealing with the aesthetics. If that's done through a special permit review or it's through the planning board that has those guidelines to make sure that those more commercial spots, more industrial kind of businesses have extra layers of aesthetics to make sure that they don't become eyesores. Then it makes it more palatable. I think when you read zoning, it talks about, you know, the right thing in the right place, you know. So.
All right,
Not
so
that
we'll
I
work.
disagree with that.
I think we'll work.
Okay.
We'll have to work on the definitions to differentiate between them, and
I agree.
then ultimately assign the uses by definition to the zones that you think they would be appropriate, and obviously have special use permit standards for them to ensure that they're of a quality that matches the town's vision and its aesthetic.
Well, I
that-
wish we could have said that 2 hours ago. We would be home.
And then you can watch the debates.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Coming up. No, I mean, if we had an industrial zone, I'd certainly, you know, would think another auto body shop could go there. But I don't know where we have an industrial zone that isn't along the river.
Yeah,
So
no,
I guess that's my concern.
What about Long Meadow Road? Isn't that zoned? What's the zoning out there? I don't remember off the top of my head.
There's not a lot of land available for Long Meadow Road. You know, most of it's state park.
Okay.
Yeah, because we always tend to think about the Warwick part being within Tuxedo, but it's Warwick.
But what about on the east side of Long Meadow Road?
So on Long Meadow, you basically have the piece of LIO that is on the, it's on the Tuxedo farm site. That's not parkland, that's still LIO. You have the Watchtower property. And then beyond that, you then get to the intersection of 17A and Long Meadow already. So you have those couple of the fire department there. You have the business there. You have those properties that are by the reservoir, which I don't know that you want there.
I was waiting to say reservoir. My drinking water's in there. I'll never support that. Full disclosure.
Yes. And you have what we calling the tourism business area, which I don't know that you'd want automotive there.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. So really the places are, and it's, you know, to some extent you're so constrained by all the parkland. So this one little GB zone is really the kennel. We have to zone it something because it's otherwise surrounded by parkland.
Right.
Again, once you get into Southfields, you know, you have mostly the Southfields Hamlet zone. Then you get down to Hickory Hollow, where you have the Hickory Hollow property. And again, you know, in between all of this is parkland. Then you get down to Duck Cedar and the lawn and landscaping people. And that's another GB zone. And then, you know, boom, you're into the Hamlet, Tuxedo Hamlet. And the frontage of the Hamlet is in the TTC because you're trying to create a pedestrian-oriented retail office mixed-use type environment. But behind that, you know, Contractors Road, the Marino, you know, those are GB. And so your industrial districts, just because that's their general business, I shouldn't say they're industrial, but they're general business because that's frankly what the uses are now.
All right. Yeah, so, you know, I guess in a granular way, I guess I'm not against an auto body shop in those discussed areas, but it would have to take some very strict architectural guidelines and some very strict code enforcement for that to be successful. And I'm not sure we're ready for that yet. So I guess I would say I would want it there. Maybe. I don't know.
To me,
there's too much to discuss on it.
It's a difficult topic.
The auto body shop, the auto body center of Orange County. I'm fine with that. You know, that if we're known for state forests and some local history, I mean, we can't accommodate everything.
Well, at what point, Bonnie, can we be considered legally to be too restrictive?
I don't think that you are. I don't think that by not allowing auto body shops, you're restrictive. You're being overly restrictive. I think that there are other communities that don't necessarily allow that use. Having said that, you know, the context is you are a community that has a lot of parkland, and any of your developable properties are on a state road.
All right. Body shops that look like Wolf Lodge. I'm in.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of the thought down in the MB district with gas stations, that if it's going to be a gas station, if it has to go through architectural review, and maybe it does look like something that you'd see in Colorado with rustic timbers and, who knows what else.
Yeah. Right.
But, this is a difficult land use topic. These are the uses that are difficult to regulate, that do have code enforcement issues, and that some communities have difficulty figuring out where to allow them. And 17 is, for you, your main highway. It's it's obviously the most visible part of the town. The fact that it's on the state highway, it would make sense to allow it. The fact that it's on the state highway, you see it, and your precedents here are not the best as far as what you have now, and that's due to a variety of reasons.
I mean, I think Reno is one of the best
Yeah.
examples of how it should be done, right?
Right. As far as the landscaping and the screening and not seeing it, absolutely.
Right, especially the screening. I mean, that place is beautiful. It almost looks like somebody's home.
Right.
But, I'm still reeling from the nightmare of C&E auto body as well, like Maria, and we can't allow that to occur.
I have to tell you, that was in front of the planning board, and when that has an approval, there's a plan. It's supposed to have trees in the front, and it's just never adhered to. And they put those low-growing little tiny shrubs that are never going to screen anything in the front. It doesn't even meet what was approved. And if you had screening, if you had a row of pines and evergreens, maybe it would be a different story. Part of this has to do with also figuring out and allowing these on the right sized parcels, because if you get too small a parcel, it's going to be difficult to screen anyway, other than with the fence.
Right.
But, I don't even know how much of that area of that property, a lot of what you're seeing in front of it is probably state right of way. So I don't even know that they have that much room to work within, as far as putting their buildings and their storage in, and where they can do a lot of landscaping. So it's just a problematic property. And, certainly a place like Tuxedo Auto Body, they have more room to do the right thing and to put the screening in. And frankly, I thought they had to, and again, it's not there. So
one of the key components that we're talking about here keeps coming up. We don't have defined. So zoning is important, but so is those architectural guidelines. The reason that we moved over the ARB into the planning board was primarily for that reason. Have they even been developed? And I need to see that to go forward. I mean, that's a prerequisite component of these discussions.
When you say, have they been developed architectural design guidelines?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, you don't have architectural design guidelines at this point. You can rely on other resources. You could have a guidebook that could be put together for sure, but at this time, no.
I think Tuxedo represents a niche because we're trying to stay within the aesthetic schema that already exists, right? So it's going to require, like a great example of that is what Steve's Pizza did down there, right? That comes from what was there, okay? We're not requiring them to have, those steep pitch roofs or any of that stuff like that, but something that can emulate that. That's the whole thing. Now, the other thing is for me, and I'm going to close it out for me on my talking, but currently the Tuxedo Golf is for sale and has entertained a buyer that has tried to convene conversations with our town board without having an application on the table. If we're talking about changing that golf station situation, we need to do that pretty ASAP in recognition of the owner, because he wants to get out of there. He needs to at least be advised from the town board or the planning board or whoever it is that this is what we're more than likely going to adopt in our zoning and acceptable use. And this is what you need to court your business as currently. I don't think it's fair that, he has to sit and wait for us. I think we need to take him under the microscope and get that one put to bed. That's my 2 cents on it, and I'm out.
Thank you for that.
Okay, I think we're
Bonnie,
coming up
could
to
you
the
repeat-
witching hour
Could you
here.
repeat
So
those last three things that you said, Bonnie, that I said, wow, I wish you said that 2 hours ago. That would be a good ending. You were talking about,
I don't remember.
the definition.
I don't
Yeah.
even.
Go ahead.
Definitions. This is actually, I was summarizing what Jay was talking about.
Yep.
Essentially, you have to parse out and create the definitions. And then
Yep.
once you have the definitions, you then have to go through the zoning map and determine where you believe those uses would be appropriate.
Absolutely. And
So
we're
I think,
pretty much stuck on these very particulars with automotive, and the most outstanding one, obviously, was the one with the most environmental / industrial type of concern. And all of us were really challenged to even point on a map where that might happen, because Tuxedo, you between the Ramapo River and the Ramapo watershed of Sterling Forest and Harriman State Park. So, that's what Tuxedo is about. And, so we can't put a nuclear plant in the middle of Harriman State Park. It's never going to happen. Okay. So, we can't be everything to everybody.
right.
And that's basically it in my mind.
So
Right.
I think,
And to Dave's point, when is it being overly restrictive? Well, I think in that point, we're also responsible for defending the watershed that is so important to millions of people, to not just allow a painting shop. So there's obvious reasons why we have to realize our unique position here in Orange County. And over and out. I'm over and out.
Me too.
so that's a wrap for this evening.
yes, thank you so much.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Thank you.
Great job, Bonnie. Thank you.
Sure. So we'll work on definitions, and I think we'll all have to follow up with then really, again, determining where you want these. And design
Absolutely.
guidelines is a separate discussion as far as having something in place that guides the planning board.
Okay.
And certainly not lose all the ground we made on the sign, to be prepared for the public hearing, and make sure we're able to cross that across the goal line, about these commercial lines.
I guess we need a deadline for getting that out for the public, so they have time to review before the public hearing. So I guess that would be November 1 would be our goal there, our deadline to get something out to the public.
So my follow-up is to just add real quick red line, pull out the sign regulations so you have the context of where this fits. And then I will send the comments that I heard tonight, and Jay, I think, and Marissa are going to work on further refining that section.
Sounds
That's
like
a thumbs up. That's it. That's a thumbs
Okay.
up from Jay.
Yep.
Thumbs up.
All right, guys.
All right.
Okay, so we have to close this meeting. I'd like to make a motion, 9 p.m. to close this meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll take a roll call. Dave McMillan,
Aye.
Maria May,
Aye.
Jay Reichgott.
It's just getting interesting, but okay.
Michelle Lindsay.
Aye.
And Ken English, I'm with Jay, but aye. Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Guys.
Good night.
Bye.